Hello, F2 Fan 5000 here with driver ratings and analysis from the Baku round of the 2025 Formula 2 season. First thing, I want to go back to the Monza round. I gave Jak Crawford a 0 or a 1. After I did my video, it turned out that he had engine issues. And because this sort of comes under the heading of technical problems, I want to give him change the rating from Monza to a 5 out of 10. Coming to the Baku round, the driver ratings, starting with Leonardo Fornaroli, a 6 out of 10. And I think it's a very up and down weekend. I think in some way he's very harshly done by, because actually in the feature race, Fornaroli, I feel without the safety car would have finished on the podium at least, if not won the race. With the safety car, bunched up all the teams. He's gone from the lead to 4th place under the safety car conditions because of the pit stop cycle. That's not his fault, but then he's had a moment running into the back of Alex Dunn, and I've got to penalise him for that, and I still think he drove a good race after that. In the final lap, he's right near the 2 leaders, Dirksen and Crawford. He's very fast, and it's not real. I just feel like without that safety car, he could have won, but obviously safety cars always change things in Formula 2, and I think that error really has cost him a lot. If it wasn't for that error, I think his position in the championship would be a lot more secure. At the very least, if he'd finished fifth, he's lost 5 points. You know, a 24-point lead is pretty good. The other thing, the sprint race. At the start of the sprint race, he's very slow. He's very slow in terms of his race pace. However, as the race goes on, he picks up a little bit. And that overtake on Gabriele Mini was absolutely sensational. That was really, Senna, Schumacher, Max Verstappen stuff. You don't expect to see such a crafty, calculated overtake and brave overtake around the outside of turn 3 on the last lap of an F2 sprint race. Putting 3 points on the line to get one more when you're the championship leader, that's fantastic. That's why I've given him a 6 out of 10 rather than a basic 5 for that overtake alone. And Fornaroli is probably the most interesting driver, I think, on the grid, because he shows he's very strong all the time, but he shows flashes of absolute brilliance, and sometimes he's a little bit missing as well. But most of the time he's pretty good. That's the sort of, he's a very calculating driver. I remember the qualifying session as well. As always, he's the one going faster on the second push lap. I don't think he was the only one this time, but he always does that. Always finds time on the second push lap. So that's like, he has a lot of good qualities. He's very careful when he picks his overtakes at the right time. And there's so many upsides to Leonardo Fornaroli, but yeah, that mistake was very costly. It was a bad look. Roman Stanek gets a 3 out of 10. Basically, his weekend is summed up by that terrible crash into John Bennett, rejoining the track unsafely. Means he started well down in the field and struggled to make too much of an impression in the races. Arvid Lindblad gets an 8 out of 10. Lindblad drove very well. He started well down the field. He wasn't able to get the lap in during the qualifying. And of course, he had the red penalties left over from Monza. So he started well down, and for him to come through to 6 in the feature race is a fantastic effort. He wasn't really helped out by the safety car, a little bit, not much. Although the pace wasn't really there, he's more like holding people up rather than going forward. Pepe Marti's a second-year driver. Pepe Marti gets a 2 out of 10. He's caused incidents. His pace was decent in this feature race, but he's caused incidents with Stenson and Villa Gomez in the sprint race as well. Got a penalty, lost his points. Maybe I'll give him a 3 out of 10. He had good speed in the feature race, but that's all I can say about Pepe Marti. Oliver Goethe gets a 1 out of 10. Another anonymous weekend, including an incident in the opening lap of the sprint race. Richard Verschoor gets a 5 out of 10. He's highly experienced driver, and he's just picking up minor points every weekend. He's not taking the fight to Fornaroli the way Jak Crawford is. Luke Browning, 4 out of 10. He drove very well in the sprint race, but in the feature race he's had a shocker. So in the sprint race he's finished second just behind Dino Boganovic. So it was a high-tech 1-2. Yeah, but in the feature race had a lot of issues. Maybe some of it's not his fault. I don't know. We didn't really see. There was something on the screen about collision between Browning and Stanek. Stanek didn't get a penalty, so I've got to assume that it wasn't his fault. But I think there's something that we didn't see that might influence how we see Luke Browning's weekend. Dino Boganovic gets a 9 out of 10. I believe this is his best weekend in Formula 2. He's improving since Silverstone. He's been more on the pace. He's finished on the podium in the feature race because of the penalty of Leonardo Fornaroli. If he'd been on the feature race podium on merit, I might have given him a 10. Obviously inherited sprint race pole, or was it at the front? Probably not on the pole, of course. Probably, I think he's on the front row though, and he converted that to a win. A dominant win with the safety car restarts. Excellent work. Can he carry this momentum into next year and perhaps challenge for the title? Gabriele Mini gets a 6. He's qualified well, although as we know a lot of people didn't get set the fast laps in qualifying, and in both races he's been sliding through the field. Whether you say that's because of Prema, don't have a good car anymore, or because of Gabriele Mini, or the way he sets the car up, I don't really know for sure. But I have to go off of what's in front of me. Nothing terrible from Mini. 4th in the feature race is quite good, but his pace was always lacking, I suppose. As I mentioned before, Fornaroli's overtake on the last lap of the sprint race, lesser drivers would have understeered into the side of Fornaroli, but Gabriele Mini definitely left him plenty of room while not making it easy for him. Sebastian Montoya gets a 5 out of 10. He's not really had the pace of his teammate, but he's picked up some decent points. I'm sure that his qualifying lap was disrupted, but you have to consider that he didn't get a banker in as well. Jak Crawford gets, well, I'm giving him a 10 out of 10. I think he's done all that he can do. I do think he did benefit from the safety car. He's able to get out in front of Fornaroli. That's a free kick, basically. But he did very well to stay ahead of Joshua Dirksen and to control the race from there. When he's out front, he looks imperious at times to Jak Crawford. He had a good 4th place in the sprint race. Pole position, so I'd be crazy not to give him a 10 out of 10. If you get a pole position and you win the feature race, of course you got to get a 10 out of 10. But as I said, also fourth in the sprint, so it's a very good weekend. And now he looks like the most likely contender to Leonardo Fornaroli in the championship. But as we've seen, qualifying consistency as well as issues perhaps with the Dams car that we saw in Monza, I'm not so sure. Coach Miney gets I'll give him a 1 out of 10. I don't even remember seeing him all weekend, or he's involved in some incident. Alex Dunn gets a 5. He's excellent in the sprint race. He comes through for a podium from 7th on the grid. However, in the feature race, I know it's hard to say because his race is ruined by Leonardo Fornaroli running into the back of him. But it's not really Fornaroli's fault that Dunn kept locking up and going off the circuit. Well, maybe the fact that he had to run off the circuit because he's pushed damaged his tyres. He was doing a lot of lockups. To me, that's more on Alex Dunn than it is on Fornaroli, so I have to penalise him for that. A 5 out of 10. And obviously, I think he looked really quick in qualifying. If he got the laps in, he would have been on the front row, I think. I think it's just the nature of Formula 2. You have to have that in mind. The banker lap might be the only lap you get. We've seen that a lot. It's very disappointing. I don't feel as though we're seeing the true potential speed of the competitors. But then again, I've got to look back at qualifying and say, well, Alex Dunn grazed the wall, bent the steering arm by touching the wall on his second push lap. That's not really anyone else's fault. His teammate, Omri Cordeal, he gets a honorary 0 out of 10. Fourth season driver, crashing in qualifying, nowhere in the races. What else do I need to say? Victor Martins gets a 1 out of 10, and I think that's generous. Third season driver, supposed to be championship material, crashes in qualifying, has an incident in the feature race. He gets 1 point from the weekend because of the sprint race. Tomo Miata gets a 3 out of 10. Nothing special from Miata. I believe with Marty's penalty he might have scored a point, and he's had no incidents, so I'll give him a 3 out of 10. Martinius Stenson, he gets an 8 out of 10. He was fast from the get-go, qualifies in the top 10 in his first race. For Trident, was fighting for podiums in both races. Showed a lot of speed. The DNF is not his fault. Definitely not in the sprint race. I don't even think in the feature race, otherwise Pepe Marti would not be given a penalty. And very promising start for Stenson. Lawrence Van Hoopen gets a 2. He's been involved in incidents and looked a lot slower than Stenson. He's about the same level of experience, but you expect more from Lawrence Van Hoopen. Joshua Dirksen gets a 9. Points in both races. Excellent feature race. Comes through the field. Probably benefited from the timing of the safety car and the pit stop cycle. But nonetheless, pulled off a lot of overtakes. Looked fast and fought for the win. Made it a drag race to the line. Fabulous work from Joshua Dirksen. Chan Shields gets a 4. There's not much to say really, but I don't remember him crashing a lot, so I'll give him 4 out of 10. John Bennett gets a 5. Obviously his weekend is compromised by the crash. He's on the back foot from there, starting at the back of the field in both races, but nothing noteworthy either. And Rafael Villagomez gets an 8 out of 10. I think he was on a suboptimal tyre strategy. He's done a fantastic job to hold on to points in the feature race. So well done, Rafael Villagomez, doing a much better job than some people would have assumed he would do. As for the championship now, highly unlikely anyone other than Fornaroli or I mean, there's still an outside chance for Browning or for the Shaw, but I think less likely. Fornaroli, I don't know, because it's a bit chaotic, of course, but I think most of it wasn't his fault, but obviously one major mistake, and he was lucky they didn't throw a safety car for Alex Dunn's car parked up the escape road. Of course, I don't remember seeing on the TV how far the car was up the escape road. I don't know why the yellow flag stayed out, so it must have been somewhere. And Jak Crawford, I suppose he could take the fight to Fornaroli in the championship, but as I've said, consistency is not really, especially in qualifying, it might put him on the back foot. We'll see how he does in Qatar and Abu Dhabi.